Greetings and welcome to another episode of On the Layouts or module. Once again, that will hopefully be plural at some point. This episode covers my progress with the new module for the majority of November. Our discarded friends here, sitting before you, are just a sneak peek of what there is to show you this time. Without further ado, let's get this train rolling. So it's clear I have, for lack of a better term for their current state, discarded the short legs. This means I have replacements. I intended to utilize the same design, but I had to account for the additional height needed to meet the required specifications and the possibilities of still making it too long. This meant elongating the spans of the main bars, but while still considering the potential to adjust later on. With the plans in place and all looking promising, I made the required set of lengths using my miter saw. One learning point from that was how good a job the saw made of the angled ends for the braces. Clean, crisp, and very easy to use compared to the silliness with the hand saw on the previous legs. It was all fairly straightforward after that. I reused the braces from the shorter legs, getting everything lined up as best I could. As a result, there is a bit of a wobble, but nothing compared to an unbraced version, as described in the previous video. After that, I moved on to painting. I used an acrylic primer this time around. I didn't fancy the hassle of fumes nor the cleanup associated with the solvent-based primers. It seems to have done the job just as well. Next, I decided to take care of the smaller holes in the foam boards. You know I enjoy time lapses, so here's one backed with Natural by Endless Love. Here is the finished result after at least 2 days worth of drying time. As you can see, much better results compared to the glue I tried to use before to stop up some holes. I'm not 100% sure yet on what I'll do about the bigger holes, which were originally made for point motors on earlier versions of my permanent layouts. The thought process with these holes was to add a solenoid point motors attached directly to the points, since there are holes for them in the sleepers, or ties for us Americans. Upon reflection, this was a very bad idea for anyone with any thought on realism or beauty in the track work, because without doing anything about the hole, it's obvious, and any attempts to conceal it could easily be seen too. Therefore, in the following versions of the permanent layout, I remembered that I did start putting down thin cardboard to cover larger holes like this, so I may rely on that again. And last but certainly not least, I did a revisit of planning the future track layouts. There was one more setup I had overlooked which may prove to be the winner. As a recap, I decided I needed to have both doors reachable by parked boxcars, while still having enough space for a pull-in and drop-off by a medium-sized locomotive, including for returning to staging. As you can see from the picture I featured in my previous episode of On the Layout, every option listed so far considered the locomotive pushing the cars into the siding from staging. This meant having a long enough lead in between the switch off the main and into the siding. Every solution from this group barely had enough space for both doors on the building, so it wasn't ideal. The new idea came to me as I was watching modeled as well as prototype operations at sidings. So here we go. This is where the local will enter the siding from the main, highlighted here. It will then proceed to pull the car into the siding lead to line up with the factory spur or siding. I am undecided if the track will end at the factory or not at the minute. Future expansion plans will decide. One possible downside to this new plan is the setup may look cluttered with the 3 tracks in place. This is so far what I believe to be the only downside to it, so let's focus on the improvements compared to the other solutions. Improvement 1 is the siding on the opposite side of the main. This is now completely free for use with one of the commuter trains to do some shuttle interests in the foreground to keep things interesting. The idea with the siding is to have a branching point further up the main, where this is currently intended to be within the planned staging module. However, over time, I'd like to think I'd add some more modules where it branches off within the scenic areas instead. Improvement 2 is related to Improvement 1, where there is now theoretically 2 stages of separation from the main. This middle track can now serve as an arrival-departure track for any plans for expansion, as well as a passing place if the needs arise for it. Improvement 3, as potentially already mentioned, I can now pull in and easily line up the cars with the factory for delivery with much less risk of fouling the main due to these 2 stages of separation. There is also still enough space for a larger box car and a medium-sized locomotive, demonstrated here. Improvement 4, as also mentioned, I can now snugly fit 2 cars with doors matching the building's own docks. This comes with the caveat a smaller box car will need to be positioned at the door closest to the point. As you can see here, and here, this clearance is just tight. This looks like a good list for comparison, so let's recap and compare these improvements to the original 3 solutions. Before I begin, you may have noticed the chapter selection on the lower part of the video as well as on the additional details. This next part may be a little bit repetitive, so I'd recommend for any of you not interested in such things, you can skip to where I will be going over the summary and decision in the summary and decision chapter. Okay, starting with solution 1. It looks very clean and simple, no problems there. Let's award 1 point. For this next one, and to be fair on all of the solutions, a shuttle is possible in every single one of them. But for this one in particular, the shuttle loses moves to the switcher's operations. I'm sure that's quite obvious. So, we have to take 1 point away for that. We can also see there are no stages of separation from the main. Therefore, fouling is an essential requirement for the switcher to make its moves. We have to take 1 point away for that. The switcher, performing a pull-in, delivery, and depart, will be very clunky. It would gain no moves because it must constantly give way to a hot main. Another point taken away. However, with this solution, both docks can be serviced. That's 1 point we can award. So, in summary, solution 1 gets -1 point in total. This is probably bad, but let's hold until the overall summary before casting judgments. And now, solution 2. This one still looks clean and simple, so 1 point awarded. With this one, the switcher has a place to pull in, hold, or spark cars without losing a move. But it would still need to foul the main to deliver, therefore, still limiting the amount of moves available to the shuttle. This, I believe, is a middle ground, so let's not take nor award a point for this. There are still no stages of separation from the main. Fouling is still a guarantee. 1 point, therefore, needs to be taken away. This time, the switcher can utilize at least 1 more move, especially during a hot main. However, it would still need to foul the main to properly perform a delivery. This is another middle ground. No points. And for this final section, the second dock is now sitting on a curve. I'd say another middle ground here. No points. So this is an even 0. It seems things are getting interesting for everyone. Let's carry on. On to solution 3. Just as a reminder, this is the final of the original 3 solutions. Being the last idea, it obviously does not look as pretty. So I'd say this is a middle ground, no points awarded or to take away. However, the switcher can now perform all necessary moves to deliver and spark cars without fouling the main and therefore taking moves away from the shuttle. 1 point for this. This also means there is one stage of separation from main ops, but is reliant on a single main schedule for trackage rights. This is the middle ground. No points to take away or award. And because of this, the switcher can now make switching moves independent from the main, and therefore the shuttle will not be impacted during delivery and spotting. 1 point awarded. Alas, there's always a catch. The second dock is now completely written off. This is 1 point taken away. So to summarize our third solution, it is a modest 1-pointer. That concludes the original ideas. It is good to see there was at least one scoring solution in this group. However, even the best solution of that group couldn't compare with the new solution. It has all the operational bonuses, except for being a little bit cluttered. So it's suffice to say, I'm going with the new option, unless something else comes along. And that is it for this on the layout or module update this time. I hope you enjoyed following along, and if you want to see more content and possibly keeping me interested, please consider liking and subscribing.